It's the BS DFS Fantasy Football Podcast. If you don't know, now you know. If you ain't listening, why not? Boom.
This is the BS DFS Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by Scotty and Brian, with the quick picks that'll make you the quick bucks. We're going to succinctly cover the quick picks that'll make you money. And this year, we're going to mix it up, and Mike will be joining us. Mike in the past has won all sorts of different contests in daily fantasy, including NFL, XFL, esports, and MLB. And as always, we're excited for the new season. We're ready to go. And we're going to go ahead and start off with quarterback. Scotty, go ahead and start us off.
All right. So the first quarterback I want to talk about this week is going to be some Matt Ryan going against Seattle. We're looking at a 49-point total, which is tied for the second highest on the slate. It is a home game, which is always a plus, and Atlanta's coming in as 2-point underdogs. Seattle did finish kind of average against the pass last year. They finished 16th in the DVOA rankings, and Atlanta actually does have the most pass attempts per game in 2019. That backfield's still a little bit of a mystery. I'm not too sure how Gurley's going to work out, but you can always rely on Ryan to put up big numbers passing wise. So I really do like him this week going against Seattle.
Yeah, that was definitely one of my picks. But also wanted to add to that, I know it's not going to be as big of a difference being home compared to being away, since they're not going to have as many people in the audience, or potentially any people in the audience because of COVID. But the fact that Seattle is coming from halfway across the country, whereas Atlanta is being able to just drive on over, I think that's going to make a big difference in the fact that they're not going to have to deal with that travel time. I've got pretty much the same notes as you did on that one. So 100% agree.
Yeah, I like that game. I definitely like that game. Just even on both sides, I expect it to be a shootout and them actually to let Russ cook. So I think Seattle's going to push Atlanta for points, and Atlanta's definitely going to answer back.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a shootout of a game. So let me go ahead and start with my quarterback that I was leaning on, which if you listened last season, I'm always pretty much a big fan of, and now he's with another team. So Phillip Rivers is the guy that I've been looking at. I really like him. I think he's really cheap. He's going to have a strong O-line. He's been really connecting with T.Y. Hilton in practice. In practice, they had 19 out of 28 passing in their scrimmage game that they had, including 5 receptions for T.Y., so I'm definitely going to be stacking that and passing to the running backs and tight ends. Very reasonable price. He's sitting at $6,000 on DK, and then Jags have lost some of their really strong defensive pieces, and not to mention that Rivers has always been a gunslinger, so I'm ready for that, some of those deep passes.
Yeah, I like Rivers. I'm just afraid that that game isn't going to be as high scoring. It might turn more into just running the ball down your throats type game with that offensive line just running through Jacksonville and Marlon Mack and Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, no, I get that, but I could see there being some upside there.
Nah, Jacksonville's garbage. I really don't see Rivers having to do much in this game.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll find out.
They're 8-point favorites, so I don't know. I don't see it, but
yeah, we'll see if we can get some Minshew magic in there.
That'd be the only way.
Yeah, possibly.
All right, Mike.
I guess I'll move on to my favorite quarterback for the week, and I'm going to go with Teddy Bridgewater at 5,900. He's with the Panthers now, and new offensive system, new team, just real weird with Cam Newton leaving, and just the whole identity of this team pretty much changing. But Teddy Bridgewater last year was the number 2. He was number 2 in accuracy according to Player Profiler. And he didn't have many deep balls, but New Orleans didn't really ask them to throw deep. But when he did, he was top 5 in deep ball completion percentage. Is also top 5 in play action completion percentage. And all of the pass catchers on that team are yak monsters, just yards after the catch everywhere. And I don't see the Raiders defense being able to slow anything down, and the Carolina defense can't really slow anything down. So I believe the game total on that is 48, and it could get pushed higher if this turns into a shootout.
Yeah. I didn't actually consider him at all. But, I mean, he was really good whenever he filled in for Drew Brees. So, yeah, it's definitely
I like that
something to
matchup and price point.
Yeah. All right. So, let's move on to running back. Who wants to start us off on that one? You want to start us off, Mike?
Sure. I'll take, I like Marlon Mack from Indianapolis. They do have the best O-line in the league against presumably the worst team in the league. And there is a little push on his opportunity with Jonathan Taylor there, and ultimately Jonathan Taylor is going to get that job. But yeah. Frank Reich likes his veterans, and he likes to show respect to his veterans. So I believe he's going to get the veteran deference and get most of the touches week 1, and probably get pushed out in later weeks. And sitting at 5,300, I think that's a great value on getting good quality touches.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting that he was at the lower price of the two when he's getting the starting job.
Jonathan Taylor can do a lot more with the touches he's going to get as far as per touch. I just think Marlon Mack's going to get the majority of the opportunity to put up some more fantasy points this week.
Yeah, makes sense. All right. Scotty, do you want to go ahead?
All right. So the one I want to talk about, it's a little bit risky, but I do like some Sony Michel going against Miami. He's sitting at 4,600. As we know, Miami was just terrible on defense just across the board last season, and they did have Damian Harris just recently go to IR, so it's going to be pretty much Michel and White taking over the backfield for New England right now.
And Michel's more of the actual running back, whereas White basically doubles as a receiver.
Right, exactly. He's definitely going to get more of the goal line work, and I just like him at this price point and in this matchup. I think they're 6.5 point favorites.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely cheap. There's no doubt about that. I just always worry because, New England's so hard to always pin on what they're going to do, especially with a new quarterback now for the first time in years.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people are going to be on the New England backfield this week, which is part of the reason I really like Michel.
I like it.
Yeah. That backfield has just been a mess over the last 3 weeks with figuring out who's really going to be the starter there. But
it has for years.
Came out in this last week, and it looks
really
like he's back in that starting role because I believe Damian Harris is hurt.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So one guy that I was looking at, he's definitely not cheap, But Dalvin Cook, Minnesota, they lost Diggs. They only really have one solid receiver that they've had for a long time, sitting with Thielen. And the team has shown that they really want him to be the staple of the team. They want to go in the running game nonstop. Why Diggs didn't even want to be on the team because he was sick of the fact that they kept running it. Again, he is a bit pricey, but also, he can be a receiving running back as well. So I think he's a little bit pricey, not in the range of McCaffrey, but I still think he's worth the price.
Yeah,
he's a little too expensive for my taste.
Yeah, he is, but I do think he'll be worth it because he's going to be the lifeblood of the team.
I guess the last game Green Bay played, they allowed 300 plus rushing yards, so that might work in his favor.
Yeah. Does somebody want to go over an extra one? Running back?
I can go over another one here.
Go for it.
I know one high-owned running back coming up this week is going to be Antonio Gibson with Washington. I really don't like him as much as the field seems to do. He's going to get opportunity, but that's a horrible low line, and it's going to be a split backfield. So if I was going to make that move, I would much rather go Chris Thompson sitting at 4,000, who's proven he can perform a negative game script, and Jacksonville's going to have to be passing the ball against the Indianapolis Colts. And I think if you, instead of going Antonio Gibson, who will be really chalky this week, if you go Chris Thompson, you get the same upside, same situation, and you're going to have lower ownership.
With more experience. That's definitely a cheap price if you're trying to get somebody in there.
So is Chris Thompson the new number one for Jacksonville?
James Robinson, I believe, is the name of the new number one, and
okay.
Not too much known about him. He has profiled well with a lot of the DraftNet community, but I was more leaning Chris Thompson for the passing down role, and having being the veteran in that backfield, and also being with Jay Gruden, who's now the coach in Jacksonville. He was with him in Washington and sort of just moved with Jay Gruden to Jacksonville. And they also had Devon Ezigbo, who was the other competing running back in that backfield, go down with a hamstring. I believe it was just today or yesterday. So there's going to be opportunity opened up in that backfield. And while James Robinson was listed as the starter, I think that was going to be more of a committee situation than having him be the workhorse.
Gotcha. Well, let's move on to some of the wide receivers. And I'll go ahead and start us off with this one. One guy that I was looking at, which is a game that we've already talked about, I was looking at some DK Metcalf. As we've already brought up, it's definitely a high point total. DK Metcalf is a little bit cheaper quite a bit cheaper than Lockett. I think Lockett was sitting at 6,800. Let's see. 6,500. Whereas DK was sitting at 5,800. So he's a little bit cheaper in that point. He's more of the deep threat. They're definitely going to be a shootout kind of game. And he's the number 2 to look at. He's getting a lot more speed. And they're becoming more and more dependent on him and trusting in him. And I definitely see that he's probably going to be looked at a little bit lower comparatively to Lockett. So I think he's a guy that I've been targeting a good bit.
I definitely don't mind Metcalf for the opportunity. I definitely think he can do well in that game. One of the guys I was on was actually Lockett.
Yeah,
but
I think they're both very good. They both got a lot of upside. I think DK has a lower base but a higher ceiling, whereas Lockett has a higher base and a lower ceiling.
So I would disagree with you on Lockett's ceiling. He is the more dynamic player in that in the receiving core. Metcalf has a very relatively small route tree, and that there is some speculation. I don't think it's going to happen in Seattle, but there is some speculation this year that teams are going to figure out really how to defend him, and he's going to hit some slumps. That it has to do with him pressing in the backfield, or them not pressing him in the backfield. He tends to take a stutter step, whether you're right up on him or you're 10 feet back. Either way. Tyler Lockett, as far as being able to move all around the field, if there's one receiver that's going to, I feel, emerge as the true alpha in this passing game and quite possibly be better for the whole season, I like Tyler Lockett's talent profile, but DK Metcalf definitely is at a discount this week.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Do you want to go into details on one of your picks, Scott?
So this week, I was actually looking at some Robbie Anderson. He's playing with Carolina now, going against the Las Vegas Raiders. He's sitting at 4,700, so he's at a pretty good price point, and it's going to be a pretty high total. I know we touched on it earlier when we talked about Bridgewater, and Carolina's coming in as 3-point underdogs. Oakland was 31st against the pass in the DVOA rankings last season, and probably one of the big reasons I'm kind of high on him is he is reporting like a really good training camp so far, and he seems to have some good chemistry with Bridgewater. So I think he's going to be worthwhile at this low price point.
Yeah,
and in this matchup.
Yeah, he was a beast when he was on the Jets. He had so much speed. So
he just didn't have anybody to throw him the ball.
Yeah, very true.
If Carolina will push downfield, and we can get more of those deep targets for Robbie Anderson, then that will be a really nice pairing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm just worried about McCaffrey eating all that up.
Well, McCaffrey's probably going to open up the deep ball, right? If I had to guess.
Oh yeah, he'll be creating space, and that with the Carolina defense being so bad, they're going to have to operate at a really fast pace on offense.
Right. Right.
It's going to be the closest thing to Tampa Bay that we have this season as Tampa Bay last season, except Bridgewater shouldn't throw, 50 interceptions.
Yeah. That was nuts. All right, Mike, do you want to cover another receiver? We got the time.
Sure. I'll go on the other side of that game, taking a look at a rookie wide receiver, and probably not the one you're thinking of. Everyone's been talking about Henry Ruggs, and lately there's been some hype, but we need to let people know about Bryan Edwards. Is sitting at 4,200.
I think they're the same price.
He's a rookie wide receiver out of South Carolina who broke out at 17 years old, and that's really young. Almost no one does that. He's in camp already beat out Tyrell Williams for the starting job, and he works well in all areas of the field.
Yeah, I definitely was looking at both of them. I mean, they were both on my radar as cheap ones. I actually had that as a talking point, was whether we would be, if you would choose either him or what was the other guy, Ruggs.
Oh yeah, with Henry Ruggs.
Yeah. Because they're both sitting at the same price point, and they both have, or close to the same price point with a lot of potential.
Oh yeah. Well, Henry Ruggs has the draft capital, and John Gruden definitely wants to use and feature Ruggs, but Edwards has been showing up in camp, beating out Tyrell Williams, and is really showing himself. A lot of people think that the Raiders took Ruggs a little too high. A lot of people feel that they should have taken Rager or CeeDee Lamb at their draft position. Not to knock on Ruggs and they can't be a great player, but Edwards is profiling more as a breakout player, and he's profiling more as someone to do it early. Usually you wouldn't play rookies in week 1, and this season would make it more so that you shouldn't with the shortened off season. But half this receiving core is rookies. They're going to get opportunities. And if I'm going to take a shot on one, I'm going Bryan Edwards.
Let's move on to our tight ends. And Scotty, do you want to go ahead and start us off?
So again, I'm kind of going with some weird ones this week. Kind of want to talk about some Hayden Hurst, actually.
Oh, you're killing me. That's the exact one I've written up on. I knew I should have taken that first choice.
I'm surprised you had him picked because, I mean, I would have figured he'd been completely under the radar, but he's sitting at 4,300, really good price point. Seattle was the second worst against tight ends on DraftKings, averaging 15.7 points allowed per game. There's no more Austin Hooper for Atlanta right now, so Hurst is going to step into that number one role pretty easily. I think the big thing, it looks like they traded a second round pick to get their hands on Hurst, so I'm guessing they see something there that the rest of the league didn't see. But I think he's
in Baltimore. I mean, he was pretty consistent there.
Yeah, he was behind Andrews, and that was like the big thing that kind of hurt him in his numbers. But I think he's at a really good price point and a really good matchup. He's worth the gamble.
Yeah, I 100% agree on that. Hey, you killing me, stealing my picks away. I had a cheap one, a risky one, which was Hayden Hurst. And then I've got one of, the most basic, consistent ones, the highest priced one that is available, George Kittle. I figured I'm going to probably do some lineups where it's got Jimmy G and Kittle, just because he doesn't have many receivers available. I think Deebo Samuels is injured right now, so I think he's going to be a good look. He's going to get a lot of targets that are taken away because there's nobody else they can really lean on. And Arizona is the worst against tight ends, and as we've seen, Kittle can just take control of the game, and it's a high game total sitting at 49 total points. So I know it's an obvious pick, but it was one that was on my radar pairing up with that stack in order to get a cheap price at quarterback and get, pay up a little bit on tight end.
I can't argue anything against George Kittle going against Arizona.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
I would normally say no. Yeah, Arizona was last against tight ends last year by a pretty good margin.
Yeah, exactly. So, Mike, let's go over your tight end.
The tight end I like is Dallas Goedert at 4,100, playing for Philly. We've had already injuries to that wide receiving core. We've had Jalen Reagor go down. Then we also have Alshon Jeffrey, who just came off the PUP, but we don't really know how healthy he is. And Goddard got more of a role last year, and he's a young ascending player where I believe we've already seen Ertz's ceiling. So I believe Goddard is going to be worked in more this season, and at 4,100 against Washington.
Are you worried? Zach Ertz will eat away at some of those targets, though.
Well, they run 2 tight end sets, especially when these receivers go down. So you have both of them on the field at the same time. I wouldn't be as worried about Ertz taken away from Goddard as I would wide receiver 1 taken away from a wide receiver 2.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, let's move on to defense. Let me go ahead and start us off real quick. One, which I know that they've lost some pieces, but of course it's Fitzpatrick at the helm. I think the Patriots still have a really good defense. And even if it's a high-scoring game with Fitzpatrick leading the pack at the Dolphins, he'll definitely throw some interceptions. You know, he loves to throw some deep balls. If the Patriots have a lead, you know, the Dolphins are definitely going to have to throw, and they'll let Fitzpatrick do his thing. And he always throws interceptions, there's no doubt. And hopefully one of those interceptions turns into an actual score, defensive touchdown. The Vegas odds for point total is sitting at 43. And I just still trust Bill Belichick's, you know, management of the team. So I've been targeting some Patriots defense.
I don't mind the Patriots at all.
All right. So who wants to focus on defense?
I'll give a defense here. I'm actually going to go with the other side of that game and play the Miami defense at 2,000. Miami's defense wasn't good last year, but they did make some upgrades. And this is a new Patriots team. Cam Newton was just signed, feels like a month ago, maybe a little farther back. He's coming in learning a new system. You have a bunch of young receivers and not the best receiving core. And Miami's sitting at the bottom at 2,000. Could get some interceptions, take one back to the house. And they have a decent pass rush, not the best. But definitely a tournament play.
Yeah, for the high upside, cheap price.
Yeah, and a salary saver.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if it was like the typical Patriots nonsense, but I mean, if you think about it, Cam just recently got listed as the starter.
Yeah, he's playing mind games on you.
Yeah. I think this team could have some growing pains to start off, because they've had shaky starts with Tom Brady when there hasn't been any wide receivers to go to, and they get it together towards the back half of the season. This could be a spot where you could get some defensive touchdowns on the other side of the ball.
Gotcha. All right. Well, let's move on to this sneaky pick of the week. Who wants to start us off? I mean, I'll jump, and I'm going to say a pick that I think Mike will be kind of happy about, being that it is his team. I was looking at Sims. Apparently, they don't have many receivers there besides McLaren and Sims are like the one and the two. And Sims not only is a receiver, but he's also labeled as a kick returner and punt returner on the depth chart. And I mean, those, anytime you can get away with a receiver, getting another 20, 30 yards on a punt or kick return, that's always extra points on the board for you. Plus, he seemed to be coming in his own a little bit towards the end of the season.
I definitely like Sims. He's definitely going to be the complimentary receiver there to McLaurin.
Yeah, and especially
he's got big playability.
Yeah. All right, who's next?
I think I already kind of spilled the beans on mine, going with Hayden Hurst. So I don't know if So yeah, I don't really have one for this segment specifically.
No worries. Mike, do you have one?
I can go with another one, and that would be TJ Hawkinson for Detroit. And I'm going to like him as a sneaky pick every week until he breaks out, because he profiles so well as a tight end, and last year was his first season, and tight ends, even the best ones, don't usually do something their rookie season. He had one fairly good game, and then he got hurt, and now coming in to year 2, this is about the time someone of that nature should start lighting things up. And with Stafford throwing him the ball and the other pieces on that offense with Galladay and Marvin Jones, there will be space for him to operate. I'd like him to break out this season.
Gotcha.
Hopefully.
Well, we're running short on time, so let's get on to the gut check. And this week, you two are going to be doing the gut checks.
Ooh, gut check.
Scotty, go ahead and start us off. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in some Matt Ryan. Like I said before, I think he's probably my favorite quarterback on this week.
Mm-hmm.
Running back wise, like I said, I do like some Sony Michel.
Mm-hmm.
Where is he? There he is. And I do really like Marlon Mack, especially this early in the season. I think it's going to be a while before Taylor can really eat into his work too much.
Yeah.
Especially at that price point and that matchup.
Cheaper than Taylor, yeah.
Wide receiver wise, I kind of want to get a New Orleans player in there, so I'm going to save a couple bucks, go with some Emmanuel Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
And I do want to get some Tampa Bay in there. So, let's see, will Evans be good to go? Let's see.
He's questionable right now.
Yeah, I'm going to do Godwin just to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely want parts of that matchup.
Yeah, for sure.
I know we didn't really talk about it too much, but it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And for that last...
Yeah.
Right. And then for that last receiver, I'm going to go ahead and plug in some Anderson.
Nice cheap play.
There he is. So, tight end. Of course, we're going to go with Hurst.
Yep. Yeah, buddy.
And defense-wise, not really any steals on defense this week.
They didn't get too pricey, though, because last season I know some of them went up to 4,000.
Right, yeah. I'm thinking the Lions defense, they're 3-point favorites at home. They're not too expensive.
Plus, I think they're keeping Mitch Trubisky as the starter over Chicago, and he wasn't great last year.
Oh wow, that leaves a lot of money.
Yep.
Let me do
that's a lot
Eckler
of
for
money left
flex,
over
and then
then.
let me upgrade the defense. Let's see.
Pay up.
Yeah, let's do the Bills defense. Let's just go ahead and.
Sometimes those win.
Leaving a lot of money, but.
All right. And then, Mike,
There we
your
go.
turn.
All right.
All right. Well, I'm going to start off with Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback. And then
he's just a
pair
no-brainer.
him with McCaffrey and then DJ Moore. And I'm going to Brian Edwards. And then
Who's the other
we'll go
running
with
back? Nice.
Marlon Mack. And I'll go ahead and get my third running back in there. I think I'll go Eckler. I like the pairing of that defense, and if that game turns into a shootout, he's not scripted out. And then
Ooh, that was another one I was looking at but didn't
Deshaun
get enough notes on. I like that though.
I like him. I'm just a little afraid he's going to be high.
You're low with money on tight end, so
that might. Yeah, I'm gonna go. I'll go Dallas Goedert at tight end. And then I'll go with
using all that money, all that
Dolphins
extra money that Scotty left on the line. All right. Well, that is a wrap.
I'll take it.
All right, so that concludes this week of the BS DFS Fantasy Football Podcast. You guys can go out there and take these picks and win you some money. Until next time.